Hey, what's going on YouTube? Lightsaber Samurai here, and I'm back again with another video. And this time we are talking about hidden gems for the PlayStation 3. Now the PlayStation 3, it wasn't my favorite console of the 7th generation. I was actually much more into the Xbox 360. But after the fact, once I went back and started collecting for this system, there was a lot of great games, a lot of great exclusives, and a lot of like Japanese RPGs and fighting games that just kind of went under the radar, some of which I feel like are going to rise sharply in price as time goes on. So in this video, of course, we are taking a look at 5 hidden gems for the PS3 that you need to get before they get too expensive. So without further ado, let's talk about it. Okay, so first up on the list, I'm going to talk about a fighting game that was released by Capcom, and it was in cooperation with Namco. And this, of course, Street Fighter Cross Tekken. Now, this is a game, it was supposed to have a sister game that was called Tekken Cross Street Fighter. And that one was actually the game I was more excited for. In this game, it plays like Street Fighter 4, and this build off the popularity and success that Street Fighter 4 had when it released in 2009. So they dropped this one in 2012. This has a huge roster of like 40 characters from Namco franchises and Capcom franchises. Mostly Street Fighters, but mostly Street Fighter characters in there, excuse me. But there are some like Poison from Final Fight and things like that in there. The gameplay, of course, plays more like your Street Fighter 4 game, but Tekken, it's got a little bit of a Tekken flair, whereas the buttons kind of correspond to each limb. So I thought that was a pretty nice subtle change, and for the most part, Tekken characters actually play very well in this game, despite the fact that most of them don't have projectile weapons, which is one thing that I was worried about when I first popped this in. But I played as a lot of Tekken characters in this, and I enjoy this a lot. This one, it sold okay, but I guess it didn't meet their projections, and so at times they were working on the other game, the Tekken Cross Street Fighter, and they had mentioned it throughout the years, but it was a game just never came out. So I don't know if we'll ever see it. We probably won't at this point, as this game is 8 years old at the time of this video. But if you see this one, it goes for pretty cheap now, and the reason why I think it will rise in price is most of Capcom's crossover titles do become more expensive. If I'm thinking like Capcom versus Marvel versus Capcom, or Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter. What's another one that comes to mind? The EX series. Some of those games in that series are kind of on the pricey side, and so a crossover game like this, I think, is something that's going to be big money later on down the line. You can pick it up for about 15 to 20 bucks right now, and I definitely think it's worth that price. The PlayStation version, the PS3 version, also has some exclusive characters that you can play as, like Pac-Man and Mega Man and things like that. So if you see it, it's definitely worth it. Definitely pick it up. Okay, the next game on the list is pretty much going to be a no-brainer for those of you who collect PlayStation 3 games. This one is an Atlas title, and that alone is enough to make me want to go out and purchase this game. But this one happens to be a fantastic little Zelda clone. That, of course, is 3D Game Heroes, and this came out, I want to say, around 2012, 2013 or so, and it's a fantastic game. It takes place in the world of Dotnia. The king has decreed that all things should be 3D, and so you see at the beginning of the game, it goes from a 2D to a 3D world. Your job is to collect these a number like 5 gems or something to save the world. The story is basically like Zelda, cookie cutter Zelda type story, but the gameplay is fantastic. You walk around, you have this huge sword that you can actually collect items over the course of the game to increase the size of it, and it gets to ridiculous lengths and widths. I mean, it gets to the point where you can just take out entire fields of enemies at the same time and cut down fields of grass at the same time. The tilt shift effect that this game uses for its graphics is fantastic. It kind of looks like maybe like everything's made out of toys, or like you're a giant kind of just like looking down on this world of Legos, like as it progresses. And this had the kind of Minecraft aesthetic before Minecraft was very popular. So 3D Dot Game Heroes, this is one that I haven't seen in the wild for some time. This was also a PlayStation 3 exclusive, so you combine the fact that it was exclusive combined with the fact that it's an Atlas title, and Atlas is known for having 1 to 2 print runs tops, and then they never make more. And so this game probably is not very this is probably very limited out in the wild. It also didn't score that well, or at least it wasn't very popular when it first came out, so it quickly dropped to bargain bin prices. And I think you can still get this game for around the $20 mark, maybe even 15 or less if you find it at GameStop, but I haven't seen it at GameStop for at least a year. So if you do find this, grab it, hold on to it. This will be probably one of the first games that rise in price when people really start collecting for the PlayStation 3. Okay, next up on the list is another Capcom title. This was a very interesting and a very unique title that I thought, at least when it first came out. Nobody remembers this game, and so the fact that it's called Remember Me is a very apt description, because this game pretty much came out and then quickly fell into obscurity. This is also a game you can easily get for the $10 mark if you find it out there. You play as a young woman who has amnesia, who's apparently a freedom fighter in the future. I think the year is 2084. You're in the city of Neo Paris, and your job is to expose this corrupt government and bring them down and bring about the new revolution. This game is fantastic. I thought the graphics were beautiful. This is a gorgeous looking game. The cool effects, like the digital effects that you see on the back of their necks from the ports that they use to access memories, to give and take, and things like that. Small touches like that, moving through the environment. You see the screens on TVs light up with different graphics and different movies and things like that, and it all runs at a really respectable frame rate, and I didn't see anything as far as slowdown or frame drops. I don't even remember noticing any screen tearing or things like that. This game at its core is a beat 'em up, 3D beat 'em up. As you go through, you'll unlock more level or more combos that you can string together, and stringing together combos will give you different effects, like doing extra damage, or there are some combos you can put together that will restore some of your health bar. I thought the game, it worked really smooth. You got a nice little dodge mechanic in there, so you can dodge it up while you take on groups of enemies. The level design is fantastic. However, my only complaint with the game is I wish it gave you more in terms of exploration. This is a fairly linear game, despite the fact that a lot of scenes you'll stop and look out on these huge vistas, and like you'll be on rooftops and see like the rooftops and just the landscape of the high class part of Paris, and you'll in the early levels you'll be down in the slums and see just like huge vistas of just the slums out in front of you, and it all looks like you can just go out there and explore, but the levels set you on a pretty set path. That was kind of a letdown. It's all very beautiful to look at, though. This game, again, is one that didn't sell well. It immediately dropped in price and ended up in the bargain bin, despite the high production values and the excellent gameplay from this game. If you see this one, again, it's like a $10 game. Pick it up, buy 2 copies so you can flip one later if you want. This one, I predict you can also get it for the Xbox 360 too, so if you see it there, find it there. But of course, we're talking PlayStation 3 in this video, so if you see it, pick it up. Okay, moving on next, the penultimate game on the list. This is another Atlas title, so that alone, if you see, just collector's tip, there's a pro tip. If you find any game that's made by Atlas, pick it up, especially if it's at a cheap price. If you can get two. Atlas games get notoriously pricey. Very few of them from even like the 6th generation and before. Like a lot of those games are on the pricey side, simply just because there weren't a lot of copies of said game in circulation. This one, I have an interesting one here. It's based on the popular TV show and book Game of Thrones, and this is the Atlas version. There's actually 2 Game of Thrones games that came out on the 7th generation. There's this one, and then there's the Telltale version, which is kind of like a point-and-click adventure. That one's pretty cool too, but I liked this one better because it was more of an action RPG, and in this you'll play as a ranger who's assigned to the wall. And actually, throughout the game, you'll play as several characters throughout the course of the game. And it kind of, I can't remember if this is the one of them takes place kind of separate from the story. And then I think this is the one that takes place congruently with the story of Game of Thrones. So that's kind of cool. You'll kind of meet main characters from the show, and they'll kind of give you set tasks and things like that. The combat system in this is pretty cool. It plays a lot like the Knights of the Old Republic games on the original Xbox, and so you'll kind of put in commands and then watch them kind of play them out in real time as the enemies using their commands as well. Got a bunch of different moves and a bunch of different abilities depending on your class. So as the game starts, you'll pick your class of warrior and you'll get abilities and buffers based on what class you picked. It's a pretty good game. The voice acting in it is pretty good. It definitely captures the feel of the show quite well. So if you see this one, I bought that. I don't know if you can see that, but I don't know if it'll focus on that, but $4.99 is what I paid for that game. So I don't know if you'll be able to see it with the glare from that light, but this is still, I think, like a $5 game, and it's definitely not going to be the case. Again, Atlas, so pick it up. It was I think this one was a PlayStation exclusive, and it's based on a popular TV show, minus the last season. So if you see this one, grab it and add it to the collection. This one is definitely going to be hard to find in the future. Okay, and moving on to the final title we have today. This one was made by EA. It's based on a very popular movie, and this came out on just about every system there was at the time, 6th and 7th generation. But in my opinion, the definitive version was the PlayStation 3 version, and that is The Godfather, the Don's Edition. And this again, it runs congruent to the story, kind of like Game of Thrones did. You won't play as any of the main characters, but you play as this rando named Aldo. You get to customize him and make him look how you want, and he kind of his story plays out around the events of the Godfather movie. This game was fantastic when it came out. I played it first on the original Xbox and then ended up getting the 360 version. Then I ended up finding this version. This one has exclusive content from the other versions, like it has new businesses and new hideouts and warehouses and things like that didn't show up in the other version. So you get basically more game with this one. This actually, unfortunately, is rising in price. I bought it for $22.99 a few years back. This one is already hovering at the $45 to $50 mark. So it's only going up from here. Again, out of all the versions of The Godfather, which was a very good GTA clone, this one was the best version in my opinion out of all the versions that I played. So if you see it, definitely pick it up. You might have to bite the bullet a little bit and pay around the $30 mark if you find it in the store. I'm sure eBay sellers and online they're already selling it for $50, but still get your hands on it. It's definitely worth the price of admission. It's a fantastic game, and yeah, that's all I got to say about that. Godfather, pick it up. Okay, everybody, so I do believe that's all I got for you in this video, but let's talk about it in the comment section below. Questions, comments, concerns, threats. What are some more hidden gems for the PlayStation 3 that you would like me to cover? I've got behind me a collection of about 175 PS3 games, so there will definitely be more versions of this video. If you like this content, go ahead, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I do believe that's all I got for you. Lightsaber Samurai out. Peace.